What's going on, y'all? Philly Insider, $100 here. After what was just an embarrassing game one loss. Not everything, but with Wheeler's start, things looked good about 7 innings into the game. But I think you could tell that stadium felt on edge when it was 1-0 and the top of the order was coming up and Wheeler had to come out of that game. And he, obviously got the last out. He did a tremendous job, but you just had a bad feeling. And as much as you guys know, if you've watched the podcast, I love Jeff Hoffman. And even me, as someone who trusted him a lot this year, I did just the way the game was going and the way the Mets week has gone, I did not have a lot of confidence going into that inning. I just felt like the offense squandered too many opportunities and 1-0 was not going to be enough, even though you had your two best relievers available. And speaking of, Hoffman and Strom come in, and while this game is absolutely on the offense, your two best relievers just completely collapsed in critical moments. That's now the second time we've seen that from Hoffman. You had last year versus Atlanta with the Austin Riley home run, which again, I think that one's tough. You probably go high fastball there, but he still executed his pitch. Obviously we can talk about that one another time, but just didn't have it today. I mean, simple as that. The relievers just didn't have it. Even the outs felt like they were hit pretty well. There was an out off of Strom and Kerkering. I think both had deep flyouts that they got, but both of them looked like they were hit well off the bat. And both of them scored runs too. That was the thing, is the Mets kept manufacturing runs. They did not have an extra base hit that inning. It was all singles. And yet the Phillies on the other side could barely get on base. So that's really the story of the game. The Phillies beat themselves. Credit to the Mets, obviously, like they did what they needed to do to win a baseball game. But if you're a Phillies fan, you have no other option except to be upset at this team themselves. It's really on them. It's on the offense. And man, that is one of the most infuriating losses I think I've watched in a long time for a number of reasons. And part of it is just the buildup of so many of these Wheeler starts have been wasted over the past year and over his career in Philadelphia. I mean, Wheeler's awesome. He's been a tremendous player in Philly too, but the poor guy, I mean, half the time he just does not get support from his guys. And that really aggravates me because, again, this guy's up for the Cy Young and there are arguments for him to win the Cy Young. I'm not saying he's going to win the Cy Young, but I mean, what else is that guy supposed to do? He completely shoved today. And you could see it, like, his fastball was his go-to pitch. I mean, Wheeler's fastball was unbelievable. His command was unbelievable on his fastball. He was hitting his spots. He was sitting 98, 99 early in the game. And even in the back end of that game, his fastball was kind of back down to 97, and he was fading a little bit. You could tell, like, he got up to 106 pitches. He finished strong, but there were some close calls. He was working around guys. He wasn't throwing as many strikes down the stretch. So there were some things that were a concern, and his secondary pitches weren't necessarily playing the way you'd like them to in the back end of that game. But he still battled and still comes out of that game unscathed. And that guy, I mean, I don't know what else he could have done. There's just so many of those instances in his career in Philadelphia that unfortunately are going to go down as infamous moments because of how the rest of his team performed in those spots. So very frustrating. Let me get to a few of these comments here before we continue. I am, again, very, very aggravated. And again, I don't want to sit here and be dramatic because I know every podcaster or radio host or whatever is going to be sitting on their show talking about how the series is over or being dramatic or whatever. But like I do have a tough time seeing them winning this series. I'm not going to say it's definitely over because obviously it's not till it's over, but I would be surprised if they came back and won this series. I could see it going to 5. I could see them pushing it there, but my expectation, I think they will win tomorrow no matter what. Obviously, if they lose tomorrow, that is definitely, yeah, I would be shocked if they won the series if they lost tomorrow. I think they will win tomorrow. My expectation is that they will come out and be ready to play tomorrow. I'm not saying they're going to be a completely different baseball team, but I think they will win the game tomorrow. But I don't have a lot of confidence that they can get a game in New York. I mean, I think it's possible, but even if they get a game in New York, I don't feel super confident going into a game 5. Again, you have Wheeler on the mound. That's great, but that doesn't matter if your bullpen can't help you. And more importantly, if your offense can't score runs. Again, that's the bigger story. I'm still going to hold the bullpen accountable for sure, but they're put into a tight situation where they can't afford any mistakes. You would ideally like to have if Marsh hits that home run, it's 3-0, and that's a tough break for Marsh. I mean, he just missed that. He hits it to the wall. And unfortunately, he can't get it out of the ballpark. But anyway, let me stop rambling. Let me get to a few of these comments here. Yeah, Dulcimerus, welcome in, brother. 2021 bullpen flashbacks. Man, I mean, that hurts to think about. Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but I get your point by saying this too. So, I mean, that's the type of feel it was. It felt like you couldn't get an out. And again, like I said, the outs were still pretty hard hit. So, yeah, can't score, can't win. Very simple. Our lineup sucks. And they're going to use the excuse of the shadows today. If the excuse truly is that the shadows were a problem, then like look, these games are at 4 and 5 o'clock. The other team is playing with the shadows too. I get it may be tough to see the baseball. That can't be the reason you lose the game. The other team is dealing with it as well again. Like, you have to find ways to take advantage here. And sure, they did hit more in the 8th inning. I get that, but still didn't take advantage of that opportunity. I mean, again, it wasn't enough at that point. So I don't know. I mean, again, that's not something, and it's out of your control too. So you got to go out there and hit the baseball. I say that as someone who's not dealing with it, but still, none of the fans want to hear that. I honestly don't even know what to say. Me neither, sir. I mean, there's a lot to say, but there's also not a lot to say at the same time, because what happened is very simple, but it's also very infuriating as well. Don't worry, guys. Trey Turner took extra batting practice after the game. I did see that. Yeah, it hasn't helped him the past, what is it, 3 or 4 months now, Chris? Like we've talked about in the Discord. I mean, he really hasn't hit for a while. He's had a couple games here and there, or a week where he's been okay or been better. And sure, I'm talking that right now in a moment where I'm very upset at the team. So maybe I'm forgetting a stretch he had that was very good, but it doesn't feel like he's been good for quite some time. He hasn't really been swiping bags. He's still been chasing out of the zone. His defense has been a major issue as well. And yeah, that's kind of where we stand right now. So hopefully he comes out tomorrow and plays better and the rest of the series. But as he did last year, he had a really good postseason last year for sure, but just insanely frustrating what happened today. And he was a big part of that too. Still, we'll go 0 for 4 tomorrow. I mean, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. And we'll hear about the shadows again from Castellanos in the post game and do that song and dance once again. So Dombrowski needs to seriously address his team building strategy to an extent. Yeah, I mean, I think there's things Dombrowski could absolutely do better. I'm not going to just absolve him from blame here, but at the same time, these are guys who have a lot of talent and who were playing good baseball before they got to Philadelphia, and who we've seen play good baseball in Philadelphia. At some point, it has to be on the guys on the field too, because he has put together a good roster and he's put together a good core here that has a shot to win. But those guys have to actually go do it too. So I'm sure Dombrowski will address things in the offseason. If we lose this series, I'm sure there will be changes. But I'm not really sitting here today thinking of him as someone to blame right now. So Phillies can't hit fastballs. That's why they struggled a bit to end the year. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of things that were problems. I'm sure there were a number of bats today where that was an issue, but there's a lot that they got to clean up on the offensive end right now. Lucas, welcome in. Good to see you, brother. This team hasn't played meaningful baseball in months. We've coasted through the regular season. Can't do that in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, they went 500 the rest of the way after, was it after the All-Star break? And after that London series, things have seemed a lot different, unfortunately. And I think we all just thought as long as they still get the division title and just manage their way there, they will turn around in the playoffs. And that didn't happen today. So like I said in the Discord, I think I should I be surprised? Should I not be surprised? I don't know. I mean, I had a feeling this could happen, but I was hopeful it wasn't going to happen at the same time. 0-3 in their last 3 playoff games. Yeah, exactly, Chris. I mean, it's really frustrating. So we started off the last couple playoffs with wins. Maybe this time we change it up with a loss. I don't know. Maybe that changes our fortunes, but I'm real. I mean, this is the game you had to win. They had Kodai Senga out there who you knew wasn't going to go more than 2 innings, most likely, maybe 3 at the most. And you knew David Peterson was probably going to be one of the next bulk guys up, either him or McGill. You knew that was going to happen. I mean, the bullpen, their pitching usage was fairly predictable. You knew Reed Garrett was probably going to be available, as well as Maton and Stanek. Like, those were guys that were going to use. Obviously, by the time Maton and Stanek got in, it wasn't really as important. But you had an idea of the guys that were going to pitch today, and you should have had a better plan going into this game. And it seemed very clear how they attacked Bryce and Trey in this game. And it was disappointing to see the results of those ABs, knowing that that's something they probably should have expected too. So, yeah, Temple loss was tough. I didn't watch it, but I heard about the end of that game. Unfortunate. The shadows were a big excuse. I agree, sir. I mean, I understand it. I'm not saying it didn't affect them. But again, no one wants to hear that. and the other team is dealing with that as well. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'll be at the Temple homecoming game. Haven't been. I actually no. I definitely will not be at that one. So that being said, let's take a look at the box score. Talk a little bit about some individual performances. There's not too many to talk about, to be quite honest. I mean, it really is the offense as a whole today. But Schwarber, how about? I mean, that first inning was electric. That stadium was rocking. They were ready to go. Wheeler had that stadium rocking a number of times today. And Schwarber gets them going with that leadoff home run. I mean, oh my goodness, that was a tank. Into the second deck, I believe over in section 203, it landed like 3 or 4 rows deep. That was incredible. And Schwarber, and he had another single later in the game too. I believe it was the second at bat, if I'm not mistaken. It was a blooper. It wasn't the best hit baseball, but that was the only guy who did any damage through 7 innings. He had their only 2 hits, guys. The rest of the team went 0-4 in that span. You're not going to win baseball games that way, and very rarely will you win a baseball game 1-0. It just doesn't happen that often. And in postseason baseball, those deficits are very, very hard to hold. Like you just can't. You can win one-run games, but not like that. Not if your offense is going to go 0-4 outside of one guy. You just can't. Baseball is not a sport where you can be carried by one guy, unfortunately. And one guy can make a big difference and affect. Just his presence in the lineup can affect how the rest of the team is pitched to, but again, you need guys to step up, and no one did today. I am interested to see the lineup construction today. I figured Castellanos would be 4 because that's how the season ended. I'm just not the biggest fan of that. That being said, Bohm and JT really did not do anything today either. So I'm not saying that's going to change anything, right? Like as far as today's result, the lineup construction, I don't think was the reason they lost. The lineup as a whole was awful. That being said, I probably would have, my personal opinion, I actually don't know if I really have an opinion. It probably would have been Bohm, but at the same time, he's been awful since he came back from injury. So even me, myself, I can't really justify that answer. I would probably have JT there just because I think he has locked in the postseason before, and I think he's had good postseasons. But again, he didn't have a good day. He's not necessarily been hot lately. It's tough. You don't really have any protection behind Bryce Harper right now, and that scares me. And again, like I said, Marsh, I'll talk on Marsh real quick because he'd had a pretty poor day, but at the same time, 0-4, he did put the ball in play. That was more than some other guys did. And again, he just missed that home run. I'm actually curious. I didn't see the exit velo numbers and all that. Like he was so close to hitting that home run, and I mean that changes the game. It changes the complexion of that ball game, right? I mean, you had Bryson Stott on. It's right down the middle. He hits at 94 miles an hour, 341. He just missed it. And that's one you'd like to have back, and you'd like for him to crush that pitch, because then if you're up 3-0 in that situation, I actually think Hoffman and Strahm may be able to close it out. I know they didn't pitch well today, so you could argue that they would still pitch the same, but I don't know. There's a difference in mentality when you are up 1-0 versus 3-0, and you have a little bit more room to work with. You have a little bit of cushion, obviously, and you can afford a few mistakes as well, and you can attack guys a little more in the zone. And Hoffman did not seem very comfortable doing that when the top of the order came up. And after Alvarez got that single, you felt nervous, and you just knew it wasn't really a good situation. So, yeah, again, as far as Marsh goes, that's a really unfortunate break for him. He's probably one of the guys who didn't do anything. He's probably the guy I'm least upset with today. And on that, let me talk about Rojas too, because he goes 0-2, sure. This was really the breaking point for me mentally. Like this was the point in the game where I was just ready to scream, because Rojas gets on with a walk. I mean, that at bat started terribly. The first 2 pitches, he looked completely lost. I want to say, I think it was Peterson who was still in, threw off speed, and he looked completely unready for it. I think it was either a curveball or changeup, and then he just throws fastball, and Rojas looked way late on it. So the at-bat started terribly. He went down 0-2. And somehow, some way, he works a walk. I mean, that turned into an incredible at-bat. And you get him on, and the top of the order comes up. Now, he goes to steal second. Schwarber hits a ground ball to second, and they get him over to second. Sure, not the most productive at-bat by Schwarber. That it is a little frustrating, but at the same time, you're asking a lot of Schwarber to be the whole source of the offense today in that spot. That being said, he does move him over as well. Like, it wasn't a completely unproductive at-bat. He does move him over to second, even though he was stealing. But regardless, he gets to second, and you have Trey and Bryce up. And they put up probably 2 of the worst at-bats I've seen of this season. That just can't happen. One of those guys needs to come through in that situation. and score Johan Rojas there. You cannot leave him stranded on second after he works a leadoff walk. That rarely does that happen in the playoffs, at least from what we've seen from Rojas so far. And rarely will that probably happen moving forward in the playoffs, where he gets on first base to start an inning with no one out and the top of the order comes up. That was really what just that aggravated me. You cannot do that. You have to score that run there. You have to put together competitive at-bats at the very least. Can't happen. That was unacceptable. That was probably the most frustrating part of the game for me. So I'll leave it at that. Harper did not have the worst day. He worked a couple walks, but again, they're going to pitch around him. We know that. And that's the thing is there was nothing behind him today. Castellanos, his hit came after the collapse happened. Bohm did nothing today. He was pretty unproductive in his at-bats. Stott was really disappointing today. He had the one walk, but again, Stott has kind of been a non-factor for some time now. And he did get on base, and again, he almost ends up scoring if Marsh is a home run there. So that being said, just horrendous from 4 through, honestly, you could say 2 through 9. And that should never be the case. I mean, one of these guys has to step up and flip the script in that game. And even after they go down, like I get it. They did score those 5 runs that inning, but they did show a little bit of fight, I guess you could say. It really wasn't anything. As far as the bullpen goes, too, like someone's got to be the stopper as well between Strahm and Kerkering. I mean, Kerkering was fine today. He didn't have a terrible outing. He did end up eventually getting them out of that inning, but one of them has to stop the bleeding there. I know it's a tough situation to come into, and that Hoffman created that mess, but Matt Strahm did not help that mess at all. He was pretty rough today. And again, Kerkering, I'm not really going to get too upset about, but you have to stop the bleeding there. And you go into that 8th inning down 3-1, and you have that situation with runners on first and third. Again, I still don't know if they fight back. They didn't show a lot of heart today, but at the same time, it's a completely different feel, and maybe they fight back a little bit there. But that's another thing is they just showed no fight once they went down in that game too. And it was unfortunate as well. At this point in the game, I mean, this didn't matter, but they get Bader on to start the 9th inning, and Stott tries to make a diving catch, and it goes into right field, and they score. So Tanner Banks looked okay leading up to that, but again, low leverage spot didn't really matter. He's just in there so that they avoid using some of their important guys. So. And then as far as Hoffman goes too, like you're up 0-2 on Lindor there. You just cannot walk him. I mean, it feels like walks always score, especially in postseason baseball. You cannot give out free passes when you're up 0-2 in the count, man. What are we doing? I love Jeff Hoffman. There is no excuse for that. So that was the other situation that just drove me crazy, and that I'm going to stay up tonight thinking about. It just flat out unacceptable. So that's my rant on the bullpen real quick. I mean, there's not much to say. Again, the bullpen's really not, to me, the bulk of the blame. If you want to have them as the bulk of the blame, whatever, that's fine. I'm more mad at the offense, but I'm mad at both of them for sure. So, and I talked about the offense a good bit. How about Cody Clemens coming off the bench and getting an RBI double? I wouldn't be surprised if he finds his way into the lineup at some point. I don't know if you need to necessarily overreact and start him tomorrow, but you do have a guy in Christopher Sanchez who's more of a ground ball pitcher. So I'm not saying the center field defense isn't important. I mean, for any pitcher that's out there, it could very well be important. But maybe you put Marsh in center and Clemens in left tomorrow. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying that's going to be the end-all, be-all and just fix everything, right? Cody Clemens is a bench player for a reason, but he has been a spark for this team this year, and I'm curious to see if they put him in the lineup tomorrow or if they are aggressive in pinch hitting. But again, Rojas really wasn't the problem today, and he should never be the problem. The problem is that if he's the problem, the real problem is that the guys 1 through 8 aren't hitting. So that's the thing with Rojas is his defense is really important. It can be frustrating with him sometimes, but I'm really not upset about him today. That walk he got, he essentially goes 1 for 3 in that situation, right? So, or in that situation for the day. I know he didn't get a hit, but he's on base 1 out of 3 times, and you had him at second base with the 2 and 3 hole up, and you didn't capitalize. So I'm not really upset at Rojas, but maybe you look to put Clemens in there to provide a spark. I don't think you can really put Clemens at second base at this point. I know Stott's not playing well. I don't think Rob's going to put him in the lineup tomorrow. I don't think, unless maybe he puts him in left, but he definitely wouldn't put him at second base. I know some people maybe have thought about that. Stott's not playing well, but they're not going to do that. And part of that's I know Trey's not a good defender, but having a guy in Stott who's really good at second base and covers a lot of ground over there, there's a lot of reasons they're not going to do it, but that's one of them. And Stott's obviously been a regular player. I mean, they will probably put Sosa at second when Manaea is on the mound, or Quintana as well. I would imagine he'll probably play versus those guys, and I wouldn't be shocked if one of Austin Hayes or Weston Wilson plays in left field for those games. But yeah, that being said, I think if Clemens is going to be put in the lineup, it's going to probably be in left field. But that's a conversation we can, if you guys have questions on that, we can continue to talk about it. But curious who will be available for the Mets out of the pen tomorrow. Have to take advantage and grab some momentum. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a good question. I've been closely following the Mets bullpen usage for some time now. And I mean, obviously we all know they have used a lot of guys over the past week. That's no secret. And Edwin Diaz threw, what did he throw this past week? My goodness. I mean, I think he threw 106 pitches over the past week. Goodness gracious. That guy is going to get worn out pretty quickly, but he's gotten the job outside of the Braves game. He has mostly gotten the job done. Yeah, he's thrown a lot. Needless to say, he's thrown a lot. Peterson threw today. I imagine he's not available. I guess he's essentially going to be used as a lefty reliever out of the pen for the Mets in the playoffs now, because the only guy they have is Danny Young, and he's not that good. So, but he's not available tomorrow. They really don't have a lefty that they can use to neutralize Harper and Schwarber. I would think they're going to get some favorable matchups moving forward here. Jose Butto is definitely available. He had off today and yesterday. He is probably, in my opinion, he is their best reliever. So they still have their best guy available. Phil Maton, he has thrown quite a bit this week, and then he threw today. I'm not saying he's going to be unavailable because he did have Thursday, Friday off, but I don't know if he would be one of the guys they would move to put in right away. Reed Garrett, I would guess he's available. He didn't pitch a ton between Wednesday and then today he pitched. So I'd imagine he's available to go back to back. I don't know. Some of these guys you have to keep in mind. I don't know if they go back to backs or what, I don't know the full situations on them. Then Stanek, I mean, he pitched today. He has pitched, I believe he pitched Tuesday, Wednesday, and then he pitched today. So he'll be available tomorrow. And that's the main guys, right? I mean, that's Ottavino is available too, but again, not a guy who I think they necessarily want to have to use late in games, but they are not opposed to if they need to. But Butto, Maton, maybe not Maton, but Butto, Garrett, Stanek, I mean, those guys are probably going to be available tomorrow. Like if they can bridge the gap with Severino or between Severino and the bullpen with one guy or two, they have all the guys available that they need. And again, that's the thing is like, as much as their bullpen is taxed, like these 6 seed types of teams, they just find ways to bridge the gaps. I don't know. It's odd. This just tends to happen. Things tend to fall into place, even though things are also chaotic at the same time. I don't know how to explain it. I hate that the Phillies are on the other side of this right now, of basically what the Braves dealt with us the past 2 years and what the Dodgers have dealt with wild card teams in their division too, the Diamondbacks and Padres. And obviously I hope it doesn't end up that way. And I'm not going to say it's over yet, but I lost a lot of hope today, guys. I really did. Just don't have a lot of confidence. Because again, you can complain about the shadows all you want. They're still playing 4 and 5 o'clock games the next 3 games of the series. So that's not going to, and again, the Mets are dealing with it too. It's not necessarily going to change. I don't know what the shadow situation is at Citi Field and what that'll look like. Obviously it'll go into the night there. So there will be opportunities later in the game. But point being, it's not just, you can't just remove that, right? Like it's out of your control. I'm feeling well. Flip the page tomorrow. What's the alternative? Yeah, I think they will win tomorrow. Solely, losing this game has really poor implications for the rest of the series, which really concerns me. So, I lost some hope today. Solely, I hope I'm wrong. I hope your optimism does end up being the correct approach, because I would love to win this series, but I don't know. I mean, you just can't waste this start where the Mets essentially have a bullpen day and have a lot of guys that are taxed, and you get 2 hits through 7 innings. It's hard to recover from that. It really is. And wasting a Wheeler gem, there's a certain there's a certain type of feel around that. It doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel sick to my stomach, and I'm worried I don't know. It just feels like a bad omen for the rest of the series. And it feels like something that's really hard to bounce back from. And not winning both home games is really hard to bounce back from in a series like this when you're facing a Cinderella team like that. So could not execute on 0-2 pitches. No, they could not. I mean, you have to throw the breaking ball, not try to guess them up. Either way, I mean, they couldn't hit their spots either. So I wouldn't say it always has to be breaking ball low and away. It depends on the batter. It depends on the situation. But they didn't execute. They just didn't execute. They didn't attack, and it's frustrating. But I wouldn't say I'd love to go breaking ball low and away every single time. But again, there's certain tendencies these guys are watching too. So I don't know if that necessarily would have been the answer. But regardless, they do have to be better 0-2. They had opportunities there, and you can't give out free passes like Hoffman did to Lindor. This game reminds me of opening day this year. Yeah, that's actually a good point because Strahm collapsed in that game, and they were up. Well, I think they were up 2-0 in that game, and then it's a great point, sir. I didn't even think about that. They were up 2-0 in that game, and then they end up losing. They got smoked by the end of that game. But point being, yeah, that is a really good analogy. Eerily similar. So good call on that, sir. Not giving the pen a pass, but the boys have to have a pulse to play. Oh yeah, I'm not giving the pen a pass either. I'm with you, Chris. I mean, like I don't have any excuse for the offense today. I don't have any source of hope for tomorrow for the offense. I think they will win tomorrow, and I think they'll be a little bit better at the plate. But like you said, they haven't manufactured runs effectively all year. They haven't manufactured runs effectively like the past 3, to be quite honest. I mean, they've had their moments for sure, but even JT said going into the series that they can't live and die by the long ball, and they felt like they're going to have a better approach of just trying to get runs in. Didn't see that today. Definitely did not see that today. And I don't know what the solution is to that. So we'll see what version of the Phillies we get tomorrow. But again, there's going to be shadows tomorrow, most likely too. I haven't checked the forecast, but I'd imagine it's going to be nice again tomorrow, and you're going to have to deal with it again. So, and this is your home ballpark. Like you should know the tendencies of the weather, not the weather, but you should, they're not weathermen, but you should know the tendencies of how the shadows play. I mean, you play there 162 games a year. You've played there the past 3 years. All these guys have been together. You got to be prepared for that. There's really no excuse. So if you can't tell the shadows excuse, makes me a little frustrated. But regardless, play Sosa tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't righty on righty with Severino. Sosa, not that he can't hit righties, but not necessarily his strong suit. I think he will play versus Minaya and Quintana for sure. But yeah, I mean, Stott has been that frustrating that I think a lot of people would probably prefer to see Sosa at this point. We were given more handouts by umpires too. That I'm not happy about. Wasted opportunities. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it certainly looked like Trey Turner was not safe on the pickoff. What's up with the pickoffs today too? Guys are falling asleep on the base paths. Johan Rojas almost got picked off. Can we not do that? Because you're getting pretty darn close to wasting opportunities there as well. Not that it mattered because they wasted plenty of other opportunities today too, and didn't create opportunities for themselves either. But falling asleep on the base paths, I mean, that's another thing that's unacceptable, and that is just like a mentally aware thing. That's not a talent thing. You got to be just awake on the base paths. So I'm not really very pleased about that either. CBP is scheduled to be sunny and a high of 76. I did just check that, Chris, tomorrow. It does look like it's going to be good weather tomorrow. So sounds like a lot of shadows and excuses. That it does. Any questions you guys got? I mean, I've kind of talked about all my thoughts on this game. Very, very frustrating. I'm not happy about how this one played out, obviously, to say the very least. And I wish I could sit here and say that I have hope for the rest of this series, but I really do not. I hate to be doom and gloom. I think again, my prediction is they are going to win tomorrow. I think Sanchez is going to throw a gem. I think the offense is going to be able to get some runs. I think they'll probably score 3 to 5 runs. That's my prediction. I think the offense scores 3 to 5 runs. I think the bullpen holds up tomorrow. But I have a tough time seeing them. They could certainly pull out a game in New York. I have a tough time seeing them pulling out a win in New York. And even if they do, I have a tough time seeing them win in 5. So I don't know, sir. I mean, the bye certainly could have hurt us. That could be part of it too. But again, that can't be an excuse for them either. They have to come ready to play. They talked about how the intra-squad game helped them, and they took the at-bat seriously. It's a lot of talk right now, and it's not really a lot of showing up. And that's what's happened the past couple of years at the end of the playoffs. The bats have gone cold at the worst time, and unfortunately, that is the tendency of this offense that is very dependent on the big hit and the home run or bust mentality. I'm not saying that's the way they approach every single at bat, but that's how they manufacture their runs, is by getting the long ball. It's not by getting a single and playing small ball, having a guy steal second, bunting him over. Like that's not what they're doing. Meanwhile, the Mets score 6 runs, I think only off of singles today. And they may have had an extra base hit late in that game. No, they didn't have an extra base hit the whole game. So look, I'm not trying to sit here and say the Mets are the best team in baseball or that they do things perfectly, but you got to manufacture runs like Chris was talking about. Whether you have the bye week or not, that can't be an excuse. The Astros ran through the AL like 2 years ago with the bye week. There are ways to approach it well. I'm not saying the Phillies didn't approach it well, but even if it did hurt them, like you still got to find ways to win that game. You just can't waste a Wheeler gem. It just can't be the excuse. So didn't hurt the Stros, but it hurt everyone else. It certainly did hurt everyone else. Absolutely. The past couple years it has, but at the same time, it's not like we haven't seen teams win it all in the past, like before the past couple years. This is recent. This has certainly been a trend. Absolutely it has. But you're still playing the 6th seed, and you still had opportunities in that game today. So again, I don't want to blame I don't want to excuse lack of execution for the bye week. And maybe they do. Maybe their bats do wake up the next couple games. I don't know. But I don't know. I can't give them that excuse. I swear if Chris Sanchez has another great start with another frustrating hitting game. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Sanchez has been awesome this year. I'm excited for him tomorrow. I think he's going to go out there and pitch a great game. He's been really, really good the past 2 years. He probably has a chip on his shoulder after how his postseason start went last year. He didn't last very long. Obviously, they were going to be aggressive and have a short leash on him in that game. We knew that. But this year, I think he will have a longer leash. I expect Chris Sanchez to pitch very well tomorrow. I think he's going to be on his A game. The only thing I worry about with Chris Sanchez is how he fields his position. That's really been where he's run into issues. Last year in the playoffs, he forgot how many outs there were and a run scored because of it. And this year, there have been a few issues where he's had runs score off of his own errors. So that's really my only concern with him, especially with a team like the Mets. I don't think they'll be afraid to bunt in certain situations and test him fielding his position. So he's got to be ready for that. But as far as the pitching side of it goes, I expect him to be ready. I expect the offense to be better tomorrow. I don't necessarily expect them to be great. And again, I'm not expecting them to be great the rest of the series either and just flip the switch. So I am concerned about them. Tomorrow's a must win. Yeah, absolutely. If you lose tomorrow, I mean, you can pretty much pack it up. They're not going to Citi Field and winning 2 games and then coming back home and winning the 3rd. They're not winning 3 games in a row. You have to win tomorrow. Didn't hurt the I already got to that comment. Sorry, sir. What do you think the implications will be in the event of a heartbreaking, embarrassing series loss for offseason moves? Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Chris. I don't want to get too much into this since it's not over just yet, but I think there will certainly be changes made. I mean, if they lose in the National League Divisional Series this year after winning the division, I don't think they'll hit the panic button, but I would like to think there will be a lot of things that will be considered. I think there will be some extensions not given out to certain guys. I think there will be not a lot of coaching staff changes. That's something I want to talk about real quick too with Rob, but I'll get to that in a second. I think there will be some coaching staff changes, not a ton, but I think there will also probably be some shifting of pieces in the front office as well. Not major like pieces. Sam Fold and Dave Dombrowski are still going to be there, but I'm sure there will be some changes up there. Pressing Mattingly and some of there's other guys too who will still remain for sure. I don't think they'll necessarily completely hit the panic button, Chris. I think they're probably going to keep most of the same group together, which if you lose this series, I don't think that's the right move, but their thing will be they still won the division and that they've still had a lot of success with this group, and they're going to try to add complementary pieces around them. And that's fine if you add the right complementary pieces, but the one thing I will say about Dombrowski, while I love him, and I think he has done a really good job with this team, and him and Middleton have put this team back into a playoff window. And we didn't have that for a while. Like all of us who have watched the Phillies for the past 10, 15 years, there was a lot of losing. Just to have this back, I mean, as frustrated as I am tonight, I'm thankful to have playoff baseball to complain about. As frustrated as I am and as much confidence as I lost today, that's one thing I will say. But at the same time, the trades have not worked out well for Dombrowski. And Austin Hayes, I mean, he's not even playing today. That's the guy who picked up at the deadline. He wasn't even healthy, unfortunately. And I'm not going to like the kidney thing. That's a completely separate situation. So I am very sympathetic for him towards that. That completely sucks, man. It seemed like that definitely took a toll on him too. So I don't want to say it from that perspective. He did, unfortunately for Austin Hayes, he did have a bad stroke of luck. But just looking at what he did before his injury, he did hit the baseball hard, and I think there were some glimmers of hope there. But at the same time, There were not a lot of strikeouts, but a good number of strikeouts and like no walks too. So in the playoffs, you need guys who are going to have competitive ABs, and that's why some of the guys I bring up, like if you guys look at some of the trade videos I make, I'm not going to say every guy is a guy who's going to have a great approach at the plate, but most of the guys who I'm going to bring up, I'm looking at if they see a lot of pitches, if they work the count, if they have high walk rates, stuff like that. Like that stuff matters to me if they're chasing out of the zone too. Competitive at bats matter in the postseason, and they're just not getting that from some of the guys right now. Give me 1 second, guys. There's literally will be 2 seconds. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. I just had to go put something down. But yeah, that's a good question, Chris. We'll dive deeper into this as the series moves forward, and especially if the season ends after the series. But I do want to just leave that there. I felt like if I didn't answer your question, let me know. But that's about as deep as I want to go into it right now. So, but great question. Great question. Was it rust? I mean, that could certainly be part of it, Richie, for sure. But again, I don't think that can be the excuse. I'm a little worried about Sanchez and the long ball. Been a problem for him in the second half. A little bit for sure. Yeah. I mean, I still think overall in the year, I mean, he threw double the innings this year and he allowed 5 less home runs. So overall, I still think it was a very successful year for him in that regard. And obviously his last start did not go well. So that there is cause for concern right there. But at the same time, I do think Chris Sanchez is a great pitcher. I think he's going to have the crowd behind him. I think the crowd will be a little bit tighter tomorrow. And I don't necessarily think they were as great as they could have been today. I do think there was definitely some nerves in there today and some thought that the Mets could win that game even from the jump. And I think there were some fans who were scared. And I don't know, the atmosphere didn't necessarily seem like what it was the past couple of years to me today. I think it was still very good at the start of the game. I'm not saying it wasn't, but I was concerned. And this is something I want to address. So I said I was going to address Rob. There's no shot he gets fired before Nick Sirianni. If you're going to blame Rob for today's game, I don't know what to tell you. He brings in his 2 best relievers in that situation. They didn't perform. The bats did not perform. That's not on Rob Thompson. There's no lineup construction. There's no bullpen usage that would have saved the Phillies today. Today's loss is not on Rob at all, and that's really all I have to say on it. I'm going to leave it at that because I'm just going to get more frustrated if I talk about it more. But Rob Thompson is not to blame today. So that's my answer to that question. Nick Sirianni is a completely different conversation. I don't really talk Eagles on here much anymore, but yeah, the Eagles are also a disaster, but even more so, I would say. Why were the bats silent? Only 1 run after a leadoff home run. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have the answers for you, Richie, unfortunately. They say it's the shadows. I say it's missed opportunities. And I don't know. It could be the rust. It could be the shadows. It could be a combination of those. It could be the fact that they couldn't get a feel for the pitchers that were out there today because none of them outside, I think maybe Peterson saw the order more than once. Maybe a couple guys saw him more than once, but that could have been part of it too. There's a lot of things, but at the end of the day, a lot of them are excuses as well. And it doesn't change the fact that they lost the baseball game because they had 2 hits through 7 innings and they couldn't manufacture any runs. So, there's a couple close calls. Marsh has an opportunity there, just misses it. I mean, that's a situation, again, where that could be a turning point. And Johan Rojas gets on base to start an inning and the top of the order with no outs still does nothing. Very frustrating. Something that I hate that most people is that people are blaming Tapa for the loss since he took out Wheeler too early today. Yeah, the guy, if you wanted to keep Wheeler in, like, I don't know what to tell you. We're going to burn that guy out. He threw 111 pitches, like you said, sir. You're right on the money with this. You can't leave Wheeler in that game at 111. And you didn't know that the bullpen was going to blow it. Hoffman and Strahm have been absolute nails for you this year. Those guys are up for all MLB selections. They didn't come through. That's on them. Rob Thompson made the right move by bringing those guys in. Those are the first 2 guys that have to be out of your bullpen in that situation. And they didn't perform. So, I like you said, sir, it really boggles my mind that there are people blaming Rob Thompson. I don't necessarily think they're watching baseball as closely as other people. I think they just see, bullpen decision didn't work out. That's on Rob Thompson. That's really all I can think to what their explanation is for it. But he brought in the 2 best guys out of the pen. It didn't work out. I don't know what else to tell you. But I agree with you, sir. I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. I'm not ready. I'm not ready either, Richie. I mean, that's what I was thinking about today. I'm really not bought in on the Eagles right now. I don't have a lot of hope for them. The Sixers, I am excited for. I'm cautiously optimistic about, but at the same time, it's always disappointment. And I'm also not expecting a finals run this year. They would need to make a trade at the deadline, which they do have the resources to do, but that's a conversation for another time. The Flyers, I do love. I mean, I have a lot of hope for them just because they're kind of on the come up, but at the same time, I love the Phillies. I mean, this is my main team out of the 4 teams. I'm not just saying this about me. I mean, I know a lot of us who are here right now have poured blood, sweat, and tears as fans. Not literally, obviously, but like you poured a lot of passion and emotion into this team. And it sucks to see what happened today. And it would really suck to see them go out like this. It would be devastating. It would be heartbreaking. I don't think Phillies fans would be the same for a while if they lost this series to the Mets. And there's a very real possibility that that is going to happen now. And again, a lot of you guys have watched through with me through, not on the podcast, but I know a lot of you guys have watched through the rebuild too. And to come out of the rebuild and contend is awesome, but to come out of the rebuild and then just have heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak 3 years in a row, it's just, it's devastating. And it would be devastating if that happened this year. And the perspective from the fans moving forward after like the past 2 years, after 2022 heading into 2023, and then after 2023 heading into 2024, there's been a lot of excitement going into those seasons. And I'm not saying opening day will still be fun next year regardless. People will be excited for it. But if they lose this series, it is not going to be like opening day the past 2 years. I will tell you that much. And the vibe around the team, the relationship between the fans and the team is going to be a little bit different because they're going to think this core can't get it done. And they're going to lose a little bit of patience. And it's going to start to have that slowly over time. It's going to start to develop that Sixers feel to it, that's a very scary thought. So I don't want to jump the gun and say that that's going to happen, but those are a lot of the thoughts that are going through a lot of our minds right now. And that really concerns me that they could be headed there because again, I love the Phillies. The Phillies are my favorite team out of the 4. I've watched a lot of players who should not have touched a Major League Baseball field, if we're being quite honest. And I'm not the best evaluator of talent, but there's a lot of guys who played during the rebuild years that we all watched. I'm not just saying me. We all watched a lot of players who probably should not have been out there. And it was really, really discouraging for a while. And then they got Bryce. And even when they got Bryce, they couldn't make the playoffs at first. So it's frustrating to come out of that era and now be in this era where you are competing every year and you can't seem to get over the hump right now. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But yeah, I'm with you, Richie. I'm not ready to really focus my attention on those 2 teams. And I'm not really, I mean, as a Phillies fan, I mean, obviously life goes on. Like I don't want to be too dramatic. Like whatever happens in this series, life is going to continue, right? Like it's not going to ruin my life. But as far as my sports life, my sports fandom, yeah, like I'm not really going to have the same enthusiasm watching those Flyers and Sixers games, and especially not the Eagles games coming up, because all I'm going to think about is, man, the Phillies wasted the opportunity and lost to a division rival in the first round of the playoffs. And that's going to be hard to shake. Like as a Philly sports fan, I don't know if I'll really be the same the rest of this upcoming sports season if they do lose this series. It's just not going to be, I'm not going to be as enthusiastic about it. But you know what? More time for other things. We're getting ahead of ourselves, though. I mean, there are still games to be played in this series, at least 2 more. But the as you can tell, I mean, from the comments and from my perspective, things are not good right now. The sky is falling. So Phils must win with Chris and Nola in the next 2 games because I see it hard winning with how Ranger's been, plus guaranteed game 5 with Wheels. Yeah, Carter, that's a great point. Ranger has not been himself since he came back from injury. I'm not really super confident in him going into that game 4. Hopefully we get to a game 4, but if you go into game 4 down 2-1, I don't feel good about that game. Like you said, Carter, I agree with you. I actually think you do have to win the next 2 games. You really do. I worry about that game 4. I really do. I think they're going to be aggressive with the bullpen usage, depending on who's available, obviously. But I would imagine they will be aggressive with the bullpen usage or decision to go to the bullpen, I should say, with Ranger in that game. I think he maybe gets the order one time around. If he gets through the top of the order the first time, I'll feel pretty good. I probably wouldn't give him a second time around the order. Maybe I'd give him Lindor and Vientos and Nimmo. I might do that. I'm not sure what their lineup construction is going to be with Ranger on the mound. It might look a little bit different. So I would I might give him Lindor depending on how he's doing a second time, but that could even be risky because obviously Lindor switch hits. So I haven't looked at what his splits are. I'm not knowledgeable enough to know what his splits are career-wise, but I might give him Lindor. I would probably give him one time to the order. The bottom of the Mets lineup doesn't necessarily scare me as much once you get from the 5-hole down. I think they can definitely, I think Ranger can handle that. But I would probably pull him after 2-3 innings based off of how he has pitched so far. So maybe they will have a longer leash on him than I expect, but that would be the way I would approach it. But again, you have to get to that game 4 first. And like you said, Carter, you got to win the next 2. You just have to. Those 2 are must-win games. If you live in fear of your bullpen, you won't have much success at all. Not Topper's fault by any means. Exactly, Sully. Like, there was no indication that Hoffman and Strum were going to look that way coming into this game. I know Hoffman's last outing was not that good, but you're going to your 2 best relievers. Hoffman he's the guy who's going to be pitching versus the top of the order pretty much every time around. If it's not him, I'm not really sure who it's going to be. So those, I mean, you had to go to those 2 guys. Again, these are guys who are up for all MLB selections. They were all-stars. They have been incredible this year. Just didn't work out. And I don't know, maybe there's more to that. I can't tell you. I don't have that type of information, but again, I don't think there was anything going into that inning that would have changed that decision. And that's the decision you had to make too. So honestly, if they lost, I might consider making some roster changes because clearly this roster cannot finish the job. Yeah, absolutely, sir. I mean, there's some things you're going to have to switch around. Depending on how Castellanos plays, I mean, I don't think they will do this, but he has 2 years left on his contract. So maybe that's something they consider maybe moving off of him. But I don't see that happening again. We're getting ahead of ourselves. There is still the rest of the series to be played. I don't see them winning this series, but as much as I do want to talk about some of the offseason stuff, we probably should wait for them to actually lose the series before getting ahead of ourselves. But yeah, I mean, I get why you guys are asking it and why you guys are bringing it up because it does feel like that right now. It does. Wheeler's like the new DeGrom in the sense the team doesn't score for him. Yeah, I was going to say he thankfully does not have the health of DeGrom. But yeah, absolutely elephant in the room. It's felt that way for quite some time now. And it feels like his whole Phillies career, he's just never gotten run support, but especially as of recently. Yeah, I actually I like Freddie Galvis. I know he wasn't necessarily the best hitter, but I loved watching him defensively. I thought his glove was pretty good. Not every year, but there were a number of years where he had a pretty good glove. Honestly, when he came back too, I mean, I was excited for him to be back, but again, I know he wasn't the most successful player, but there's a lot of other players I probably could name that maybe had their moments, maybe didn't, but probably shouldn't have been out there. I wasn't a huge fan of watching Tyler Goodell play a lot of those games. Roger Bernardino played for the Phillies at one point during, I think it was 2015, maybe 2014. Yeah, there were, I mean, Roger Bernardino, he had some success, but when he was playing with the Phillies, not necessarily a lot. There were a lot of players. I mean, thinking back to like Justin DeFreitas and BJ Rosenberg, that was before the rebuild like really, really, really commenced. But some of the guys that the Andy MacPhail crew brought in, again, I know they weren't necessarily trying to compete right off the bat, but yeah, there were some rough ones. I don't really want to go down that road and name a lot of them, but there were some rough ones. Sean O'Sullivan starting. Those are some memorable moments. Him getting hit in the neck with the baseball. Shout out Cameron Robb. Unlike some players, Rob should be granted a very long extension no matter what. I'm with you, Nerio. I mean, I don't know about very, very long extension, but look, I think Rob has done a really good job with the team. I think he's made mostly good decisions in the playoffs before. Again, if you're blaming him for today, I don't know what to tell. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to say. I think Rob has, he's had a couple questionable decisions here and there. There are very few playoff decisions. There's been a couple, but very few playoff decisions that I think are up for debate for him. I think he's mostly made the right calls. You can say he should have pinch hit Jay Cave for Johan Rojas last year. Jay Cave did nothing last year. I mean, he really was not an impact bat off the bench. Cody Clemens has had much more clutch moments than him just in this year alone than Jay Cave had last year. And there was a number of situations. Jay Cave, it just felt like anytime you had a high leverage spot or runners on, it just felt like it wasn't going to come through. I understand in playoff baseball, the chances of Cody Clemens coming through in a more high leverage spot, sure, they are lower. But at the same time, I have more confidence in a guy like him than I do Jay Cave. And I think Rob will make the move to Cody Clemens if Johan Rojas is struggling or if there's an important situation up with a righty on the mound. I think you will see Rob use Cody Clemens in those situations a little more often this year. So, but that being said, I really can't blame Rob. I think he's been mostly fine for this team for the most part. And again, starting Sanchez tomorrow, I think that's the right move. You can complain about the lineup construction today. Once again, did nothing. No one did anything. I don't think that would have changed anything. There are things I'd probably change about the lineup, but again, as far as today goes, that wouldn't have solved the issues. Harper's hitting off speed tomorrow. He swung the bat twice today, I believe. Not a single fastball. Yeah. We'll see, Sully. I mean, again, you have Severino on the mound. I don't believe he's thrown the same velocity he did earlier in his career. I haven't watched him close enough to know. But regardless, he's had a good year. I mean, Severino has really had a good bounce-back year. He's been healthy. He pitched. He was fine for them in that wild card game. He went 6 innings, gave up 4 runs, sure. But he really settled in after a while. So if you can jump on him early, get the crowd into it, I think that's important because I do think that crowd will be tight tomorrow. And I think there will be a lot of concern and a lot of worry. And it'll be a lot like Braves game 3 last year where, again, the crowd came in tight to that game. They woke up and it was electric once the Phillies got going. But at the same time, this is a little bit of a different series. So I'm not really confident that's going to happen. But as far as Severino goes tomorrow, I mean, yeah, he throws his 4-seamer a lot. We will see what he gives Harper. I'd imagine, like you said, Sully, that Harper is not going to see a lot of fastballs. And the plan is pretty clear when he's up to bat, like you said. So I'd imagine he will see – and obviously Severino throws sinker too. So I don't know how much sinker he sees either. Maybe some, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. Maybe he's going to be sitting on that sweeper a little bit tomorrow. I'm not quite sure. To me, the real problem is that I don't have a lot of confidence in the guys behind him to back him up. So the Phillies have an identity problem. Preseason, we were sold a bill of goods that we would chase less and play small ball. Yeah, when they brought was it Dustin Lind they brought in? That was what we were told. Correct, Chris. The only guy who made noticeable progress in that way is Schwarber. That is absolutely right, Chris. I mean, and it showed today too. He does have the long ball still, but I'm not saying that single he hit was the best piece of hitting. But you've seen he's had a lot of singles this year. He's taking the ball the opposite way a little bit more. He still struck out a lot, but again, Schwarber's strikeouts are mostly from him whiffing in the zone. And Schwarber had a great year. I mean, he really did. This is easily Schwarber's, I wouldn't say easily, but in my opinion, it was his best year as a Philly. I just think overall, obviously he didn't hit as many bombs, but he was still pretty close. I mean, he hit 38. He wasn't far off of the past couple of years, but you sacrificed what? He had 8 less bombs in the past 2 years before that, the same amount of doubles, and he had less strikeouts too. It wasn't by a lot. He was still pretty close to 200, but less strikeouts, still had a ton of walks as well. Had slightly less plate appearances this year too. Only played in 150 games, so naturally the strikeouts were down. But it probably could have gotten closer if he had the same amount of plate appearances. But that being said, again, like you said, he made a lot of progress this year, and Schwarber's been awesome for them. And he sees a lot of pitches. He sets the tone for the rest of the lineup. I've been really pleased with what Schwarber's done. I mean, over the past 3 years, Schwarber has been incredible for this team. He's been a leader too. He's going to be really important, not only on the field the next few days here, but in the clubhouse after a game like this. A leader like that needs to step up. And Schwarber is a big part of that locker room's just cohesiveness and just the connection they have. And he's a leader in that locker room. They respect him a lot, and he's played a lot of postseason baseball. Schwarber is someone who's played in countless postseason baseball games, and he's had a lot of success in postseason baseball. So he's going to be really important if they're going to pull out this series somehow. Again, I'm not very confident they're going to, but Schwarber is really important for that. So like you said, Chris, not a lot of progress from the other guys in that regard, unfortunately. And some of them, obviously like Bryce. Bryce was still awesome this year. But yeah, Trey, it felt like really tailed off at the end of the season and still chased a lot. And Castellanos, while he, got better as the year went on, again, still chasing a ton during the year. Like he's a big reason the Phillies are even where they are right now. So I'm not going to just pile on him today. But at the same time, he still had a lot, like even going into the playoffs, I still had concerns about him. So anyway, enough of that rant on what the team fed us in spring training. But Schwarber, Turner, Realmuto, Harper, Castellanos, Bohm, Stop, Marsh, Rojas goes sort of like a similar lineup from 22. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think Harper's got to hit 3. I just don't like the idea of him being in the on-deck circle when a game ends and there's an RBI opportunity. I do understand the logic of putting him at 4, but I would just I would rather have him 3. I would be fine with Realmuto 4, but I don't think you can put if if you have Castellanos and Bohm back to back. So in mine, I would have to switch things up a little bit behind that. So I would probably put Realmuto 4. I know he hasn't played very well. I'm not saying he's going to figure things out, but like between with Bohm struggling after the injury and just the fact that Castellanos is very vulnerable to chasing or susceptible to chasing, I guess is the right way to put it. I just feel a little more comfortable with JT there. You probably are going to get a more competitive at bat out of those 3 guys out of Bohm if I had to guess, but not right now the way it's going. He did put the ball in play every at bat, so I'll give him that. But I would probably put Bohm or Realmuto 4. The other one I would put 5. I would put Stott 6, like you have him there. You have him 6. Or do you? No, you have him 7. I would put Stott behind one of those guys, and then I would have. I would probably go Marsh Rojas, or I might put Castellanos. No, I'd probably put Castellanos. Sorry, let me just go from the top. I would probably go Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Realmuto, Bohm. You can flip flop Bohm and Realmuto if you want to. Stott 6, Castellanos 7, Marsh 8, Rojas 9. I liked the lineup from last year. I thought that was a well constructed lineup, but I understand why it's the way it is right now. And again, someone's going to have to step up. So we'll see who it is. I just hope Rob, I don't want him to overreact or hit the panic button with certain decisions, but I also hope he is willing to make changes to provide a spark or just to try to figure something out. And sometimes just seeing that lineup card change too, it gives the team a little bit of a different feel. It's like seeing a new quarterback in the game too, or like, I'm not saying that's going to be the effect Cody Clemens has if he comes in the lineup, but yeah. As you know, I'm extra hard on Schwarber. You are, Chris. He had a great year. I'm glad we could agree on that, because I know about a month ago you were worried he was tailing off a little bit, and he did finish the season really strong. So I'm glad we can both agree on that. We have had our many debates about Schwarber, Chris. So we do see eye to eye on him this year, and I'd imagine we see eye to eye on him after today's game too. We'll see how the rest of the series plays out. I'm not saying he's absolved from blame, but I mean, guys, we're coming up on the hour here. That's what I got. Really, really frustrating game, to say the least. Disappointing game. Annoying game. We were worried. I think a lot of us were more worried about Mets fans having their bragging rights rather than actually losing to the Mets. I think that's fair to say. I think we were more scared of that potential possibility than we were of the actual team. And now it's a reality. They are talking a lot. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. It's out of our control. I hate the Mets with all my heart, but at the same time, they won. There's nothing we can do right now. So I don't really know what else to say on this game. It was just, this was one of the worst Phillies game days I think I've experienced in a long time. And that says a lot considering all the rebuild games. But the rebuild games had no expectations. So this game had a lot of expectations. They did not show up. I imagine we will be live tomorrow. I won't be able to go live for very long. We may be on here together, me and Drew. Either I will be live solo for like 20 minutes, or if Drew is able to hop on, Drew will do the live and I'll probably still only hop on for like 20 minutes. So just so you guys know, but I will make every effort to get on the post game. It'll probably again be later. I know a lot of like the radio shows and the broadcast networks and all that, they do their post games like right after the game, obviously. So we just like to do it a little bit later. And me and Drew are usually busy during the games. Like we're watching the games with people or we're out watching the game. So we will probably do the post games. Like you can probably expect them 2 to 3 hours after the game. I would say maybe an hour after the game. We will see. But yeah, keep an eye out tomorrow. I'll make sure to keep you guys posted on it too. I don't think there will be a pregame tomorrow. I don't anticipate that. Maybe there will be. I don't know. I'll see if we can get something going. But let me know if you guys want a pregame. But Sully, thanks for tuning in, man. It's been a while since I've talked to you, brother. But good to see you in here, man. I do appreciate your optimism because I want to hope that they can win this series. So appreciate you, brother. Chris, thanks for tuning in, man. I really do appreciate talking Phillies with you this whole year. It's not over yet, but it's been a lot of fun so far this year. So thanks for always tuning in and for talking to the Discord and being active there, Chris. And hope all is well with the family too. Sir, thank you for hopping in. Appreciate you, man. I mean, thank you for putting up with all my disagreements in the Discord too. I have a lot of opinions and we don't always see eye to eye, but I appreciate that we can always talk about Phillies topics and discuss them too without getting mad at each other. That's a special thing. So appreciate you, man. Martian says, we should be used to this by now, right? Yeah, we should. We should. Good to see you in here, Martian. I know it's been a while since we haven't really been live very often over the past couple months, but appreciate you, man. So yeah, we should be used to this by now. I said at the start of the stream, am I really surprised? This has happened many times before in the playoffs. So yeah, like Jordan said, pathetic. I think that's a good way to end the stream. We will see you tomorrow, guys. We won't have a pregame show. We will definitely have a postgame show. Don't have much else to say. One word to wrap up today: embarrassing, just like the thumbnail says. That's what I'm going to leave you guys with. Let's hope they figure it out tomorrow. Go Phils. Hopefully the bank is rocking and they pull out a win and get back into the series. Danny says tomorrow's must win. If we don't, we are in deep trouble. Yep, exactly. Have to win tomorrow. I think you got to win Tuesday too. Thank you guys for watching. God bless y'all. Go Phils. Peace.